YouTube.
What the crap's going on?
That's right, I got a special guest today. Mrs. Air is going to be with us because she's the one that's going to put together a build in this awesome giveaway that is being sponsored by MSI and then also myself on the channel. One of you is going to win this awesome gaming. So to start off, we're going to walk you through all the different parts that are going to go into this sweet, sweet build. We'll let Mrs. Air kick things off.
Alright guys, we're going to kick things off with the case. It's an NZXT S340 mid-tower gaming case.
With a sweet matte black and red highlight finish. And a window on the side so that other people can be jealous of your
Up
new
next
build.
for the fans, we have Corsair AF140s and AF120 red LEDs.
And for the RAM, right over here, we've got some Corsair Vengeance DDR4. There's 16 gigabytes, two 8 gigabyte sticks of low profile RAM.
Alright, so MSI was gracious enough to provide us with this awesome B350 Tomahawk AM4 socket motherboard.
And to go in that AM4 socket is this beautiful processor here. This is a Ryzen 5 1600X, base clock 3.6 gigahertz, turbo up to 4 gigahertz. This is a 6-core, 12-thread processor, so it is going to be an awesome workhorse in this build.
Up next for the hard drive, we have a 1 terabyte Seagate FireCuda.
And this is an SSHD, which is a hybrid hard drive. I was trying to make sure that people knew how to do a good mix of budget and power, and an SSHD basically tries to fill the void between a true SSD and a hard drive, while still giving you plenty of storage. And of course, because of the motherboard, you have options to expand into SSDs later on. So two things left, one of which isn't here yet. I'll talk you through that. But the last component you see on the table is this Corsair CX650M power supply. It was on sale. Typically for this type of build, you don't need anything over 500 watts. But since it was on sale, why not? Go to town, get you some extra power. This is a modular power supply, or at least semi-modular, so it makes your cable management a lot easier. We'll talk about that more when we get later into the video, but that's something you want to keep in mind, cable management, when you're building a computer. And we'll show you what that means later.
And there's one last piece that we don't have on the table, and that's the CPU cooler.
That's right. It gets here tomorrow, so you'll see it later on in the video. And it's a Cooler Master Masterliquid 120 millimeter radiator, single radiator liquid cooler. So that's right, this is going to be a liquid cooled build. Now, for a real budget build, you don't need that liquid cooler, but there was kind of a reason why I got it, and it's because this Ryzen 1600X can get some pretty good overclock, and we're going to demonstrate how for first timers to do that. And really, you should probably have a liquid cooler if you wanted to get into any serious overclocking. So that's why we got the liquid cooler, but obviously, again, I'll explain later on, you can have a more budget build with the air cooler. So one of the big purposes of us doing this video or videos is to teach you, someone who may not know how to build a computer, but you love computer games, how to build your own awesome gaming rig. So we're going to run this through step by step and show you how to get all these parts into the case and get your dream gaming rig working all by yourself. The first step that we're going to go through is seating the CPU or your processor into the motherboard. And from there, we'll put the motherboard on in and mount it in the case. Mrs. Air is going to do all the building so that she can prove to you that even for a first timer, it can be done and it's not as hard as you think. Alright, so we're ready to take the first steps on our new Ryzen build. So we're going to get the motherboard out of the box and the processor out of the box, and we're going to start there. Alright, so Mrs. Air actually has our Ryzen chip. If you look at the bottom of it, go ahead and flip it up for him there. It's got the little notches that help you know which way to line it up. Before you're going to insert the processor, there's a small metal lever here. Pull out and then lift up, and then now you're ready to install. The chip should easily seat into the grooves. You should not have to force anything, so we'll let her demonstrate that for you. If you have to, you can nudge it around just a little, but like I said, it should gently drop. And at that point, it's dropped. You can look around the edges to make sure nothing's sticking up, and if it's not, simply push down the lever. So go ahead, give it a push, and then seat it underneath there. that's it, folks. That's all you have to do to seat a CPU in the socket. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard was that, Mrs. Air?
0.
0. That's right. It was easy. So there you go. One scary step over, and we're ready to now mount this motherboard into the case. All right. So now we have the side panel off our case, and we're going to mount our motherboard. This particular motherboard is a form factor called ATX. ATX is your most common form factor, and this is a mid-tower ATX gaming case, so it will fit. There are standoffs in the case. Probably can't see the one I'm pointing at there, but there's quite a few in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it looks like this one right here. So there's at least 8 standoff points where we're going to screw the motherboard in. The other thing to bear in mind is that on the back of your motherboard, there's the back plate, and that's going to fit through the back of your case and give you the input-output options for all your peripherals. All right, so we pointed out where the standoffs are. Now your goal is to line up those standoffs with these small holes through the motherboard. It's where the standoffs come through. You can see them all encircled. So you get those lined up. Mrs. Air is going to demonstrate that. And we're probably going to have some real life frustration here. That is pretty normal when you're doing this. Be patient. Do not bend or shove the board too hard because you don't want to break it. Most boards are pretty durable. Go ahead, get started. And basically you just line up your input outputs to the back plate that we already installed. You literally just push it in the hole, it fits. So I couldn't show it to you because it didn't really show up on the view. So Mrs. Air is now looking at the back to line up the input output. So basically all your audio jacks, all your video jacks, they should line up with the back plate that we installed. All right, we feel like we're pretty close. What you got to do sometimes is give it a good shove. And this board, one of the standoffs actually pokes up, and when you get it through that center hole there, you'll know that everything's seated right, and it kind of helps you line everything up. Why don't you show them the little screws we're going to put in now, Mrs. Air?
They're pretty teeny.
Yep, small screws. Get them one at a time, and you start screwing them into the motherboard. If you do a little bit of just put them in there by hand, and then you get a small screwdriver and come around and tighten them. You can just kind of set it in the top of there. It won't really hand tighten. When you tighten them, you want to get it nice and firm, but don't go crazy. Don't be going nuts like this is a NASCAR race and you're putting someone's wheel back on. All right, so we're ready to put the power supply in now that we've screwed the motherboard down. This power supply right here is going to fit into the bottom of this case, but before you can put it in there, in this case, we have to take a plate off the back. Mrs. Air, you want to go ahead and pull those thumb screws off? We've already loosened these with a screwdriver. You may have to do that in real life. And again, every case is going to be a little bit different, so I suggest you look at the instructions. I know everybody hates instructions, but sometimes it helps. Just read. Now it should be quite easy. You just slide the power supply into the shrouded area, which is where it goes in this case. So once again, Mrs. Air is going to demonstrate that. You put that is your motherboard and your processor power plugs that are built into the supply. Then you just simply slide it into that spot, and it goes right up against the back edge. Yep, so get it right up against the back edge. It should be flush. Now the plate goes on in such a way, you'll see these smaller screw holes here, and it'll line back up to where those smaller hexagonal screws will go. In fact, you don't have to worry about bumping the power supply at this point. You can go ahead and just screw it back in, and thumb tight for now is fine. You can tighten them more later if you want. All right, so we've got that back on thumb tight, and then the next step is you just line these up, and there's 4 little hexagonal screws we're going to put in. All right, so it's installed. We cut out where we put the screws in. Like I said, you just have to screw them in. Give it a little shove there to show them that it's tight. So just shove on the power supply. Yep, see it's in. All right, we're back with the next step. We have the power supply in. Now, one tip I would give to new builders is don't try and do all the wires until the end. That way you can manage them all and make them look really nice. So you might notice that I'm not taking the time to wire anything up to the motherboard just yet. All right, so Mrs. Air, why don't you hold up the next part we're going to put in. You'll have to hold it way over here. Yeah, so we're going to put in these red LED case fans by Corsair. We're going to put 2 in the front and then 1 on top for this piece. And we're just going to demonstrate how to install one. Once you install one, they're all the same. So let's show them the direction there, Mrs. Air. Yep, so you see how the front side with the decal, that's the direction the air is going to be pulled into. The one thing you got to remember is your cord, which you might want to rotate that 90 degrees. There you go, because now your cord can go out. There's a small hole in the back of the build. So your cord goes straight out of the hole and no excess cords. We can lift the piece. You got the second one started over here. And then at that point, it's just 2 more screws and you've got it all done. So once she gets this one in, we're not going to bore you with just screwing in fans. We'll go ahead and install the others just to make sure we got the shot. Yeah, we got the shot. I'm going to install one more same size fan right here. And we're going to put one 120 millimeter fan here. There is one more fan that's on the very back of the case, but we're not going to install a case fan there because that is going to be our CPU cooler, and I'll explain that later. All right, and this there is going to tell you how we put the hard drive in. Not going to demonstrate it here just because, again, if you know how to use a screwdriver, you can do this. So talk them through it real quick.
So we just slid it in this bay, and there's holes on each side for where the screws go in that came in the little packages.
That's right. That's all there is to it. And you can see that there are some power plugs and a data plug on the back. Again, we're going to plug those in, but we're going to do it later. There's no need to run all the cords right this instant. All right, Mrs. Air, tell them what we got here.
We've got the water cooler.
That's right. So this is a Cooler Master Masterliquid 120 water cooler. I was actually wanting to do an air cooler because it's simpler for first-time builders. But I wanted to do some overclocking with this processor as part of the test. So we got a water cooler. So I'll just tell you that as a first-time builder, you really don't need a water cooler for your build unless you're going to be trying to do a lot of overclocking. And some air coolers are good enough to do that. But that's a discussion for another day. Mrs. Air, why don't you show us how we're going to assemble the water cooler. So take that screw. We're going to have a push-pull setup. So that means there's going to be a fan on either side of our radiator. These are the water hoses running to the water block. Some people get confused when it comes to liquid cooling. This is a closed system. You never have to add liquid to it, and it shouldn't leak, theoretically, because it's a closed system. So the water flows through these hoses into the radiator where it's cooled, and then the cool water flows back down here to the water block to cool your processor. And just to show you all what it looks like, that's the part that actually touches your processor. Of course, you peel that off. Nothing to be afraid of, and if you are afraid of it, follow the instructions. And if the instructions don't make sense, guess what? Go to YouTube. Someone has probably made a video with this cooler several times over, and that's actually how I built my first computer. I bought all the parts from Newegg, and Newegg had a series of videos that showed you how to build your own computer for first-timers, and that is precisely how I did it. Now, we're not going to put this back fan on, because the back fan, we actually have to put the screw through the case and attach that to the back of the case. That's the next step, and we will show you that. So Mrs. Air, why don't you tell us how we got the water cooler attached to the case?
So there were 4 more of these thumb screws that went through the case and into the other fan that connected to the radiator.
Okay, the next step in our build is to actually attach the water block to the processor. So Mrs. Air is going to demonstrate while I kind of talk you through what it is that we're doing. Now, what I like for this particular process, and there's other ways to do it, if you have some isopropyl alcohol, the higher the alcohol content, the better. And you can use that to clean your processor, especially if you already have thermal paste on the processor. And just to explain what this is, this top piece of your processor in the gray is called a heat spreader. And it's allowing the heat from your processor to come up and dissipate. So what we need is a material to go in between that heat spreader and the water block that we're going to install. That's called thermal interface material. To make it short, TIM. T-I-M. This is an example. So this is Arctic Silver 5, a very common product for people to use. That's what we're going to use in this case. You can buy this from any place that sells computer parts. And in this case, instead of alcohol, I actually have some Arctic Silver cleaner, and Mrs. Air is going to demonstrate how to clean your processor. This is a 2-step, so this one is just the remover. So basically this is alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. 1 drop, go ahead and show them. You put 1 drop gently on the processor. You don't need much. There you go. And you take a lint-free cloth. Make sure that you've discharged your static by touching the metal case. And then you go in a circular buffing motion. In this case, we actually have a step 2, which is a thermal surface purifier, and this basically just helps get any small impurities off. So same thing, one small drop.
Get out of there.
There you go. And the same buffing motion. What you really have to be careful with is the thermal paste. Getting too much thermal paste is not a huge problem, but you don't want to get a ton of it to where it rolls out onto your motherboard and oozes out. So that's one of the things. Getting too little is actually worse than getting too much, but it's kind of hard to do either. It's really pretty simple, and I'll probably demonstrate this because I know this part probably scared Mrs. Air. It used to scare me a lot too. But thermal paste is actually really simple, and a lot of people do what they call like a grain of rice method or a pea method, whatever you want to call it. You take the lid off your thermal paste, you come right in the center of the processor, and you're going to squeeze out a piece that's about the size of a grain of rice. So that's the method. So again, slow, gentle. I'm going to do a little bit of extra just to feel safe. There you go. That should be, and like I said, I get worried about this kind of thing because I want it to run cool. You'll know once you run it whether you might need more. That's probably too much. That's bigger than a grain of rice for sure, but it'll be okay. Now, a couple of things I want you to see on this. For an AM4 socket, there's a little bracket here on either side of the processor, and you can see there's a little knob it's going to attach to, and that's what these little square spots attach to. So you just have to orient your water block in the direction that you want it, and in this case, I want it in this direction. And I'm going to help Mrs. Air with this part too, because first timers usually don't like this. You just get this lined up, but you can do this. Like I said, it's a little bit of confidence, and basically you kind of slowly come down, make sure it lines up, and you want to get those over the little blocks on the edge. You want to help me line up the other one? All right, so all we had to do was screw down both of those, and you'll be able to tell our water cooler is now firmly attached to the motherboard. So we should be good to go. Like I said, the first time we start it, we'll be able to run down the temperatures and know for sure. DDR4 RAM. I believe it's going to go this way. So let's show you that. It's the Corsair Vengeance. And Mrs. Air can demonstrate how to put it in. I'll go ahead and open the little... Hold on. Okay. There you go. So you open your two little things there on the end. You make sure it's lined up right, like that it fits the slot. Because there is a right and a wrong way to put it in. It shouldn't allow you to force it the wrong way.
Here.
Once it lines up in the slot, if you push down and it clicks, push on the sides. If you push down and clicks, then you should be good, and then do the other side. There you go. So one stick installed. She's going to do the second stick. RAM is probably one of the easiest things to install.
Like this?
There you go. You're all open. So just line it up in the slots, and then push down on either side until it clicks. There you go. Push and push. Done. All right. So we're getting into the final steps of the build. Mrs. Air is holding what there?
Got the graphics card.
Yeah, and this is just a placeholder graphics card. No, sorry, the lucky winner won't be taking home my GTX 1080. This is my old graphics card. I do have plans for it, and this build is not in those plans. Plus, it kind of doesn't fit the price range that I've built this for. So although it's nice, this is just a placeholder. So we're going to be placing the graphics card in this steel PCIe slot. Before installing, there are some plates on the back of the computer that you have to remove. You can see those here. So there was one plate here. You just take out a screw there, and then you just pull out these two screws, pop the steel plates out so you can fit the video inputs there, and then you're ready to drop it in. So I'll let Mrs. Air demonstrate that. She's going to move the power cord out of the way. That would be the wrong way.
Whoops. Sorry.
So then you just line up the video outputs with the slots in the back, and then you look carefully at where it's going to plug into the slot. Once you get everything lined up and you know that the PCIe lanes are in the slot, you just give it a shove till you hear a click. Can I give it a shove in the center?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Give it a shove there in the center. There you go. Once you hear that click, that means that there's a plastic thing that's engaged. Now this one's pretty heavy, like a lot of graphics cards today are. So you're going to want to give it a little lift while you put the screws in there so that it'll fit right. And you can just thumb tight these screws. That way you don't have to get a screwdriver, but you know, good and thumb tight, as tight as your thumb will get it. There's the second one. It screws in right there on the top, so she's done it well. What do y'all think? Graphics card by Mrs. Air. There is one more step that I didn't show her, and that's to plug in the power cord for the graphics card. This particular graphics card, yep, is right there. So it's an 8-pin power cord. And we've already got one run to the case. It's a 6+2 on this, so you kind of have to get them both lined up. And if you look, there's a little, hang on before you put it on.
Oh, okay.
There's a little tab on it. And that tab's going to hook right there.
Okay.
So just make sure you get it going the right way. It'll only fit one way. So if it doesn't fit, you're doing it the wrong way. That makes it pretty simple. And you just shove it in till you get it to click in. That should be it. So your graphics card is now installed.
We're
and
going to
powered.
review a couple things. You might notice that we've changed clothes because this is actually probably like a week or week and a half later than the original part of this. Been a busy week. So, Mrs. Air, what was the scariest part of building your computer here?
The processor?
The processor. So what key steps did we take to keep that from going wrong?
Is that the one where you have to make sure you don't have static?
Yes, so make sure you don't have static. You can stop that by actually touching the case, or you can get a hold of some anti-static gloves if you want to get real serious about it. The thermal interface material, or TIM, the stuff we squeezed on there, how big a amount are you supposed to put, despite what I did in real life?
Size of a grain of rice.
There you go, grain of rice. So make a little grain of rice type shape, and when you put the cooler on, it'll squish out into the right shape. RAM, I know you may not remember this, but it tells you when you have two of them where to put the two. You don't just put them in any old slot.
Put them in like each, like every other one?
Every other, and you got to look to where it tells you the first set goes. So that's right. So it's really not that challenging. So basically, I asked Mrs. Air before we came on here, tell them what you told me. If you know how to do what, you can do it.
Do thumb screws.
That's right. If you can use thumb screws and a screwdriver, you can pretty much build your own computer. It may be daunting sometimes for those who it's new. The first computer I built, I actually just went and watched some how-to videos from Paul's Hardware that he had posted up on Newegg, and that's how I learned how to build my new computer, and I bought the parts from Newegg and built it. If you're concerned about what's compatible, I believe that there's a website out there called PC Parts Picker. I'll try and find a link to it, but basically it'll show you what's compatible, and it helps you find the best deal online for the parts that you would need for a computer. So what I would say is use YouTube. This has not been the most comprehensive build video because I lack the equipment for it, but use YouTube to your advantage. Someone has always filmed what you're about to do. Don't be afraid. You can see now that this was Mrs. Air's first build. I did help her with the cable management. Cable management is pretty tough, and the first time you build a computer, it's probably not going to look real good. This is actually, I think, the third or fourth one I've built. And at this point, it's really easy for me to make it look good. You can see when you look into the square here that you really don't see any cables other than your graphics card power and your processor, the water hoses from your liquid cooler. So yeah, that's all there is to it. And what?
Read instructions.
Yes, read instructions. What went wrong when we didn't read the instructions? Tell them what went wrong that took us 45 minutes to fix.
We got the wrong size screws for the motherboard.
Yes, we opened the wrong baggie of screws for the motherboard.
I opened the wrong baggie of screws for the motherboard.
Neither one of us read the directions. So reading directions is always a plus. So follow out. Any other words of wisdom for first-time builders?
It's always nice to have someone, to ask questions to who knows things about computers.
Yeah, and I don't know everything about computers, but y'all can ask me if you have any questions, and the folks in my comments are good about answering stuff too. If you could build this for yourself, if it wasn't for a giveaway, what colors would you have picked here?
Purple.
Purple like all over, or like purple LEDs, or what?
Yeah, purple LEDs, but I still like the red with the...
Okay, so she would have just gone with purple LED. We've actually run a blue and a purple LED. This machine's not in Windows right now. If it was, it would actually fire up. I put an LED strip up here in the top for extra accents. So I put red fans, and then you can run either purple or blue or red or all kinds of colors that look pretty cool up against the red fans. So have some fun with your build is the takeaway from that. Make it your own, make it fun. There's lots of fun things to do. Like you could get like one of your favorite toys or Pokemon or Dragon, whatever it is, you can stick them inside the case, and it just makes for an extra decoration that's a lot of fun. So anyway, hope this was helpful. I appreciate MSI getting me the motherboard and AMD providing the Ryzen processor that's in here. The next thing you should look out for is I'm going to actually benchmark this. I'll be recording some of my videos on it. And then next week, I'm going to actually go ahead and tell you how to sign up for the giveaway. So hope this has been useful. Anything you want to add?
Don't pass up the chance to win a free computer.
She's right. Don't pass up the chance. It'll be easy.
We did a good job.
Yeah. How long did we spend building it? It's like a week and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, week and a half at nights in between screaming kids and a full-time job. So
Yeah, without screaming kids, it would not take that long.
yes, if we can do it, you can do it. Heir and Mrs. Heir signing out. We'll see you again.